Hello everyone, it's Hedgie. I'm back after a long hiatus because of illness, basically. It started out as my illness and then became my father's, which put him in the hospital, so it made us all very uh, busy and distracted, and I have been fairly sick lately, so um, I seem to have turned a corner on that, so I am back to streaming. And I am going to continue with my vegetarian burst through here. At least one more dish, probably a couple others before the end of the month. But welcome, welcome everybody in who is here, and those who will join us later and watch the VODs. Welcome for coming. And I am going to be making my stuffed pepper soup, which I have made before, but this time I'm making it vegetarian. Before it was made with lots of beef and beef products and such. And right now I am not being very tolerant of those, so I decided to show people how to make it
5 months.
vegetarian and
Five
how
months of
to
Strooming. Much
actually
Strooming.
deal with some of those vegetarian products they have out there. Kinara just did a lovely stream. No, I didn't. 5 months, 8 months, streaming and strumming. Tier 1. Okay, that's cool. Hey, you did get summoned. I am doing a vegetarian dish tonight, Connor. Welcome in. Connor is a lovely young man in England who is a chef there with a cafe that he and his uncle and father own, and he's just a wonderful, talented chef and a hell of a guy. So, absolutely take a chance and check him out. You will enjoy it. He streams live 6 days a week from his cafe, showing you what it's like to be a cafe chef. Um, I am doing better, Connor. I think I've got the bronchitis mostly cleared up, and so I'm feeling better and decided I need to get back into streaming because I'm just not happy if I'm not doing it. So anyway, like I said, we are going to make my stuffed bell pepper soup tonight, but I am making it vegetarian. And my friend Kinara, who does another cooking stream, I highly recommend seeing her streams because she's just full of food knowledge and food safety tips, and she's just a wonderful person to watch. She did a stream all about vegetarian meat products. And she took several of the latest ones that are out there, like the Impossible meat and the Beyond meats, and she made things out of them and gave us all the lowdown on it. Um, what it tasted like, what it smelled like, what it was like to work with. And I've been a vegetarian primarily now for about, let me think, almost 20 years. And I have some different products that I've used that I got used to. And they've changed names a couple times, but it's the same stuff. For tonight, we're going to be using Light Life. They are a brand of vegetarian and vegan meat products, and they have Smart Ground original crumbles. They also have it in Mexican. It's pre-seasoned with Mexican seasonings. And this is probably actually the most similar to hamburger that I've come across anything. It's basically already pre-cooked, so it's like you have crumbled beef, and it comes in what looks like a large patty here, but when you break it, it is crumbles. So you won't have quite the same texture. If you were trying to make a hamburger out of it or something, that wouldn't work. But you can use it in burritos and tacos. You can make it in spaghetti. I've done that all the time. The biggest difference with the Smart Ground, it has the right texture. it has a beefy flavor, but it's kind of muted. Um, it tastes like very, very bland beef. And one thing I have found with this product and most of the tofu products and other vegetarian products I've come across, um, if they're supposed to be plain, like just tofu, or beyond beef or impossible burger, whatever, they need to have some extra seasoning or it's just kind of really bland. I put my normal amount of seasoning on this and made it into spaghetti, and unfortunately, it was too timid of a seasoning, so it just tasted like really bland spaghetti. But it did have the appearance and texture of real ground beef. So that was kind of nice. And this is one of the first replacement meat products I ever tried. I have actually always liked tofu, but there's times when you don't want it to be tofu as a thing. You want to have the texture of beef. I mean, you want to have the beef. You want to have the texture. You want to have a bit of flavor. And the vegetarian and vegan industry have gone into this, and they now make very good chicken. They make good beef that you can get specialty products like sausages, Italian hot links. You can even get corned beef lunch meat that is vegetarian and vegan. And while it's not, oh my gosh, this is exactly like it, it is at least reminiscent. So it's close, and it's brand by brand, which is closer, which is just kind of there. In any case, so I am going to be using smart ground in this, and unlike my regular beef version of this, I usually leave the beef in big chunks. This is going to be more of a ground texture all the way through. So, Connor, do you do much cooking with vegetarian things? I mean, have you dealt with tofu and things like that? I know you're not vegetarian, but your shop does add some vegetarian versions of things into your menu. I know you have a nice vegetable sandwich, and you usually have a vegetarian way of dealing with your breakfast and such. I am going to start with. I have got the recipe up for this in our Discord as vegetarian stuffed bell pepper soup. And instead of with the beef, I would start cooking the beef immediately and seasoning that. But this doesn't actually need to be cooked. So the first thing I'm going to start off with is the onion, which does have to be cooked and processed well. And I will be cooking that. Doing here so I don't lop off a finger. Garbage type thing here that I can put my discarded bits in. So the first thing I'm going to do is cut this onion in half through the root end, not the end that actually has the onion greens coming off the top, so it's not the stem end. It is the bottom that has the roots. That will hold the onion together when you're slicing it. That's why I do it that way. It's just a little easier to dice onions if you're not chasing the onion all over the board because all of the different layers are coming apart. And right, that's a very tough skin. Right. So first I'm going to take off the outer layer before I start cutting this. And I will be cooking the onion and bell pepper first before adding in the smart ground. So I am going to take and I'm just going to cut this down the center here. But I don't go all the way through. I go down to about where you see it here. It is down to here. It's not all the way through. It's got about another ½ inch to go. And it makes it so everything that's inside this onion is still connected to the back and it won't go squirting out all over everywhere. So then I take and I will cut down from the top. And I make a whole series of scores here. That goes all the way through. And then when you cut down here from the top, then only then do things separate off into the individual diced bits. Meanwhile, your main onion is still neatly in place and isn't slipping all over your board, and you're trying to cut it while trying to avoid chopping off a finger. Chefs like Connor get the training in how to curl their fingers back and get them out of the way, and they chop, 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 chop real quick. I'm just happy if they all come out the same size so that they cook at the same time, and meanwhile we have not lost any fingers or gouged into my hand. So I repeat this with the second one. You can see the shadow of my boom mic I have now. We've got a new placement of it, so if I turn my head from side to side, I'm not turning away from the microphone so much, and that's good for the sound quality. So I'm going to dice this onion as well, and this is you could use a yellow onion if you wanted, or a red onion if you have it handy. I choose to use sweet onions because they're milder, first of all, and they have a little bit of an extra sweetness to them. They're called sweet onions because even when they're raw, they have a sweet aspect. And depending on the brand, the variety, I mean, Vidalias are good. You see Mayan sweets all over everywhere now. The one that's in my region and is always going to have my heart is going to be the Walla Walla sweet. And they come out one time a year, and they're very big onions, but they are so mild. They have a very pleasant onion flavor, but they also have a definite sweet taste to them. Almost like you've grilled the onion until it's browned and has caramelized. It already tastes like there's a little bit of caramelized there in the sweet intensity. And it's just, I've actually eaten the onions just eating them because they taste really good and they're so mild. And I like the flavor it gives to my cooking, especially if I'm going to be doing anything with a tomato sauce, because the tomatoes are often slightly under flavor because they aren't from the vine, but the onion adds a little bit of sweetness that you would get if it had been a vine ripened tomato. Where did it go? I just Oh, here it is. It's underneath the lid. Okay. I have myself a new little device that makes it so I can get my chopped items into pans a little easier. I still manage to make a bit of a palaver of it, but I do try to keep it neater. So this, by the way, is called a board scraper, and it's a metal blade. This is a 6x4 metal blade, and it's got a nice handle on it, and it's got measurements here by the inch. So if you're trying to measure things off before you cut them, and this is actually a blade. It will cut through vegetables. I choose, and it's actually used extensively in making noodles and making doughs. so that you can cut through them easily without using a knife and having to saw on it. So I have now got the onions in there. Now I'm going to put the peppers in. So I start out with some red bell peppers, which are the most mature of the bell peppers. That's actually a misnomer. There is one kind of bell pepper. It's just, it starts out green, and that is its least ripe version. And then it turns into yellow, and it gets a little sweeter and a little milder. And then it goes into orange, again, sweeter and milder, until you get to the top, which is red. That's the last ripe and safe way of eating it. It has a bit of a sticker that won't come off, so I'm going to cut that off. The red is the most mature, the sweetest, the mildest. A lot of people have problems with burping and such after eating these, and it's just a reaction to basically the immaturity of the pepper. The red peppers, you don't have that aftertaste that you get with the greens. And cutting it into little planks like that, you end up with a nice, neat little cage. All the seeds are in there. As you can see, the membrane is missing as well, so you cut all of that off, and then you just have usable planks here that you can cut up. So, next. And this one is a little less ripe. I don't know if you can see it, but there you go. You can see some of what's still orange here, and that's because this was still in the process of turning red. That's fine. I wouldn't be happy to take one that was kind of a mottled colored one, either green and orange, or green and yellow, or more of an orange into red. I wouldn't be happy with those, but just a little bit of an orange sheen is not bad. So people think that a green pepper is pretty harsh sometimes, and they're right. It is a little bit rougher than the more mature versions, but as you go up, it is still the same vegetable. Just like, well, there's others that are like that too, but especially in the pepper family. Okay, so I'm just going to take and cut these edges off here so that I leave all the bad parts behind. Easier to deal with. And as I'm doing this, I'm checking to make sure that the vegetable smells right, that it is glossy and not wrinkled and dehydrated looking, and I am making sure that it doesn't have any soft spots or rot, and making sure that the food is basically in good condition and safe to eat. And that's something you should just do with all of it. All of the food that you want to make sure that you do that for it, so that you're making sure you're not going to get sick from the food. Especially when you're talking plant products, they can ferment, and that's not always the best. We eat them at the stage we eat them at because that's how it's most healthful and how they taste the best, and that's why we do a lot of the quality controls that we do. And whether you're cooking for yourself or you're cooking for your family, food is one of the biggest ways to control your health. And if you can eliminate foodborne illnesses between contamination and things like that, and having your vegetables and meat products in top shape before you cook with them, that's just one of the easiest things you can do to make yourself better. Here, and this is 3 large bell peppers, and this basically was put together as all of my favorite flavors of a stuffed bell pepper, and they're not difficult to make, but they're just a bit fussy, and this, when it's finished, has the consistency of chili. It's not so much a soup because the starch in the rice actually thickens it into a gravy, and the uh, rice also absorbs a lot of the liquid. So you've got a couple prong attack there that makes it so um, your soup becomes more like a meal thing. This is a main product of a meal. You can add a salad to it. You can add a part of a sandwich, whatever you want to do. But this is really a very hearty, um, thick product when you're done. Thick recipe that works very well like chili for a main dish. And I apologize if anybody can hear pterodactyl screams in the background because we are right across from the play area of our apartment, and the children are out there screaming like little pterodactyls. I don't really understand why they do that, but it's a child thing. It can come through my microphone. I can hear it, so I don't know if you guys are hearing it. Okay, so this soup here, I'm just softening the onions and bell peppers. Then I will be making the rest of the ingredients here. And as you can see, I'm not dicing these really small because I want you to have bites of pepper, not just, little tiny chunks of it. The difference between a soup and a stew and things in that classification is really the size of what you put in it. You have larger, more rustic cuts for a stew than you would have for a soup. And stews tend to be thickened, and they tend to have more of the contents than they have of the liquid of the broth and such. So. And you want to cook this about 10 minutes to soften it up enough. This is a soup that comes together fairly quickly, except for browning the meat. You're looking at about a 20-minute cooking time for cooking the rice, which is it's raw rice, so it is 20 minutes to process that. I'm going to use it too. Yeah, it's that difference in the colors of the pepper making it taste different. Yeah, everybody thought, well, there's a red bell pepper, and there's a yellow bell pepper, and there's green bell peppers, and they're all different peppers. And they just aren't. Okay. My husband just came out here and adjusted the microphone screen. Apparently, the microphone is picking up a little bit too much of the spitting of the honey, you never actually got me the what do you call that? The can opener. I distracted you with my request for tea, which we got here, and it's it's Yorkshire tea with milk and some sweetener in it. Very hot, but that's good. Okay, the next thing I want to do is start measuring out my seasonings here. And like I mentioned, with this vegetarian product, you want to season it more rather than less because it needs to have the flavors added into it. As with all of my equipment, if you like to look at these are available on Amazon, and um, they are listed in my Discard under stream equipment. Okay. I'm kind of watching while my husband is shifting things around. These are starting to soften up. I can see that the onions have started to go a little translucent. They're not a hard white anymore. And so they're about half cooked at this point. All of a sudden I was too quiet. Am I back now? Okay. And I am going to add the smart brown now at this point, which as you'll see here, this is a product that is brown and crumbly, and it just really looks like beef. If I taste it, it actually has the texture of brown beef. It's not mushy. It actually has a little resistance to the teeth. And as I said, this tastes like very, very, very bland roast beef. You can generally heighten the flavor. It's a little salty too. But that's mostly a result of my reducing all of our sodium intake for my mom's food. You can heighten the flavor of beef in this if you wanted to cook with smart brown, not in this particular recipe. You could add cremini or portobello mushrooms that have they have a beef-like flavor to them. It kind of goes along with the illusion that you are actually eating beef. So this is not quite 2 pounds, but that's fine. The recipe calls for 2 pounds of beef or 32 ounces of the smart ground, which is 2 pounds, but they sell this by the ounce. So, get that in there. Honey, I think you might need to help Mom. What? Hold on. I am going to put us on a pause for a moment. We've got something happening here. We will be right back. Okay, hello guys. Sorry about that. We had a little situation come up with my parents that we caretake, and we needed to do a little check. Everything's fine now, and we will get back to our stream. I have got the smart ground in here now, along with uh, uh, I'm sorry. I'm gonna put you guys on. We'll be back in a moment again. So it's always exciting here in the house. So we are going to start. We need 1 teaspoon of basil here to add to it. And like I said, we're using more seasonings here than uh, I would normally put in this, but a little seasoning never hurts anything. So I'm going to use a teaspoon of oregano. I normally use about a 1/4 teaspoon, but like I said, we are adding more to this because of the mildness of the in the recipe here, the mildness of the meat. And this is going to be adding about 1/2 teaspoon of rosemary. And this is dry rosemary that I've got in a grinder, like a pepper grinder. It's got a ceramic blade that keeps it nice and small for you so that what you're chewing on isn't a rosemary leaf, which looks a lot like a pine needle. Tastes a lot like a pine needle, too. There is a resinous quality to it that they have in common. I'm going to put in 3 tablespoons, and that's tablespoons instead of teaspoons, of parsley. And because I can often go way overboard with that, I'm actually going to measure it. Parsley is really good for you in addition to adding a pretty color to the food. Parsley is very high in vitamin K, so that's iron, and that's always a good thing to have in your food as well. Now we want to allow this to cook in here for a couple minutes. The meat doesn't actually need to be cooked, but it does need a chance to warm up, and we need to get the vegetables and the meat have the seasoning all over them. So it will permeate that. The good thing about the vegetarian meat products and tofu is that they're very, very good at absorbing the flavors of the things you cook it with. So if you're cooking it with onions and spices, you're going to have that permeate the meat. And that's what you want. You don't really want to have anything bland in your dish you're eating. Hold on one moment, please. I need to go back off, so hold on a moment. And I'm back again. Sorry, this is a little more disturbed than what we usually do. Um, but like I said, we just got my father back from the hospital, and apparently we can't stay away, so we're dealing with things. Hopefully, we will not have any more interruptions in the stream, but it is what it is. So I apologize for the disruptions. We've meanwhile had the onions and peppers and the smart ground and the spices in there. I am now going to be adding in the tomatoes and the tomato sauces. I'm also adding a big can of crushed tomatoes instead of just tomato sauce because I wanted to make this one a little thicker. It doesn't have the bulk of the meat to it that the others do, so I chose to do some little variations here that aren't in the recipe but are perfectly fine to do. Using a can of crushed tomatoes and juice is pretty much the same thing as using some a thicker tomato sauce or a combination of tomato sauce and tomato paste, and that's just fine to do that. And I am adding 5 of these Roma tomatoes. I grew up calling these plum tomatoes, but they are available all year round in grocery stores, and they have a tendency to be riper than your standard round tomatoes. I'm not sure why, but they just tend to be closer to being truly ripe than the round ones, maybe because people buy the round ones all the time and they have a higher demand on them. I don't know. They make pretty big circles that you can put on sandwiches versus these, which have little circles. And these are also a major sauce tomato because they do not have as much of the gel inside and seeds as the regular tomatoes do. And that is also a reason why I choose to make them, because the pulp is what you want, not you want the flesh of the tomato, not so much the actual seeds and such. I am going to add some vegetable broth here, and I have managed to find a brand that does not have any garlic in it. So I am going to add in the 6 cups of vegetable broth. That is 1 32-ounce container and a half of a 32-ounce container. So 6 cups of vegetable broth now while I am putting this in. I am cooking this at between a medium and a medium high, by the way, so everybody knows. This is not a high temperature recipe. You don't want to be having this burning along at high, but it doesn't. It does need to bring up to a boil, and that's more than hot enough if you have a good pot. And these hard anodized aluminum pots from Cuisinart really are nice. They heat up nice and steady and evenly across the bottom, which is what you want. You don't want to have a pot that has hot areas and cold areas. This has a plate that goes across the bottom, and it heats up from your heat source, and then it gives a nice radiant, even heat upwards. So that's good. What we need to do, because this uses raw rice in this recipe, we need to get this up to a simmer, and it takes 20 minutes for the rice to cook. When you do that, starting from a raw rice, that it can have, depending on the kind of rice, it can be a little longer, a little shorter. What I use is a short grain rice called arborio rice, and it's a nice medium short rounded rice that I like the flavor of it better. I like the texture of it a little better than the long grains, and it also works really well in Asian cuisine, up to and including sushi, where if I'm making the sushi rice, you don't do that with a long grain. You definitely do that with a short grain. And I'll make sushi rice for you guys and sushi someday. I have some nice sushi roll bowls that I can make and show you, so they're not quite as fussy as actually having to roll up the nori, which is the seaweed on the outside. See, most of the preparation of this is just cutting up the vegetables, and it makes it a really fast soup to come together. You don't need to have um, a lot of fancy cooking. It's a one pot meal, which is really nice, so you don't have to have a saucepan out and a bunch of other pots involved. It's just, it's one of those easy things you can make either on a weekend or, you know, an evening that you have some time in the evenings, and you don't want to take forever to get to dinner. And this is definitely a fast prep meal as far as that's concerned. And it tried to escape, but hedge pigs are valiant hunters, and I could not get away. All right, this is my last tomato, and then we'll be adding tomato sauce and crushed tomatoes to it. Bringing the heat up a bit to get it so that it's actually boiling and ready for the rice. And the final bit that adds to this that makes it stuffed pepper soup is I add some Parmesan cheese to it, because my recipe that came from my mother for stuffed green peppers was hamburger and tomato sauce and some onion and rice. And that was then put into the bell pepper body, and she would put it into a casserole dish and stand them all upright against each other, pour some tomato sauce around the outside, and she'd sprinkle Parmesan over the top, and we'd usually eat it with extra Parmesan. So I have got in this soup represented all the aspects of my mother's stuffed bell pepper soup recipe. Although she didn't add in the basil and the oregano. My father has had a sensitive stomach for a very long time, and he wasn't able to eat some of the foods that we could at the time. But he's, you know, no longer working, no longer has the stress. As you can see, this is pretty solid, even as it is now, and it's only going to get more solid as the other ingredients get into it. Honey, I need to have that can opened. A 15-ounce can of tomato sauce that I'm adding into this, and that is because I don't have a 28-ounce one, but this is a smaller container than I normally make, and I am prepared to sub it out with some V8 juice if I need to. I don't want to fill this all the way to the top, and I am getting perilously close to that point. Thank you. And as you can see, this is just a slightly more solid version. It has some chunks. Oh yeah, I definitely didn't want to add any more to this. It's full to the top. I do it with whatever container I make this in. No matter what soup or item that I seem to make, I always seem to fill it to the top. It's a talent in the morning. It's actually a joke in my family. So, I have got those. And I'm going to turn up the heat a little bit. And I'm stirring to incorporate all of that. And at this point, I haven't added any salt at all. I always add the salt last because you can take a lot of things away from the dish. You can't remove salt, so it's best to put a little bit of salt in it and then, see where you are at that point. I am out of tasting spoons, but that's okay. I will grab my spatula and use it as a spoon. It is part spoon, part spatula, as you can see there. And then I'm going to see if this needs salt. The answer is probably going to be yes. Actually, the answer is no. I do not think it needs to add salt to it at this point. So at this point, we're just waiting for this to come to a simmer, and then I will add the 2 cups of rice to it, which will take it completely over the top. Let's see what else I can get over to here to me. I do not think it needs more seasonings. I did add enough of the oregano and the basil that I can already taste them. We buy rice in a 25-pound container. We put it into a smaller one. You should know that a cup measure is not an actual cup. This is a rice cup. It is the right scale to be a cup of rice with a cup of water, and the cup is this little thing. It's probably closer to 3/4. Yeah, it's 3/4 of an actual cup. But rice in its raw state, as it is here, takes about 20 minutes to cook, and it needs to start from simmering. So we're going to start from simmering on that. Talk a little bit about what's upcoming. Stream-wise, I'm just getting back into the run of it today, and I am going to be cooking several new recipes that I have just come up with. One of them is the cheesy chicken pot pie, and that is a combination of a chicken pot pie and a sort of staple favorite of British cuisine, cauliflower cheese, which is a lot of cauliflower put into, we eat it here. You'll roast the cauliflower, steam the cauliflower, and then you put a cheese sauce over it. It's just kind of poured over. In England, they take that cauliflower and they roast it or they steam it, and then they make a sauce like this was macaroni and cheese. They make it with a good solid cheddar, a little touch of mustard to it, and then this is mixed all through the cauliflower, and so it's like thickly coated every bit, and then that's put into a casserole and popped into the oven and cooked till the top is bubbling and brown. It's just amazing. I always love cauliflower, but this is just amazing. I only have my mother-in-law's version of it, but it's a fabulous version. So I've got assorted vegetables in there along with cauliflower and chicken, and then I'll be making a really nice cheddar sauce and then tucking that in underneath a nice pastry crust, and we'll be baking that off. And that one's upcoming. I'm also going to be showing a vegetarian dish that has a spaghetti squash in it, and that is going to replace noodles in making a tofu mushroom Alfredo, but it's zucchini squash noodles instead of fettuccine or linguine. The spaghetti squash is a nice mild squash, but it has this slightly crunchy string texture to it. So it's actually quite interesting. And it makes it so that you can replace pasta in dishes with that. I have another recipe that's for pad thai that uses that. So what you've got there is a recipe then that you can replace the noodles, you can replace the carbs from it, you can replace the um, non-keto values and have a keto value uh, dinner basically, or one that somebody's gluten-free, just wants to take off a little bit of pounds, whatever it is. It is a very nice version of uh, that particular recipe that you use the spaghetti squash in, and it makes it very keto friendly and very diabetic friendly because it doesn't have the carbs. So and we're going to let that cook for a bit. We have got a large number of followers now, for which I am very thankful. It seems every week, thanks to my friends and their devoted calling outs and shout outs and recommendations to their people, their viewers, that I pick up a few viewers here and a few viewers there, and I thank you, every single one of you. I like to share the knowledge of my food, share the recipes that are beloved to me, both of my family and the recipes that I've created myself. And I have written a cookbook, also cleverly called Cooking with Hedgepigs, which is why I call myself that here on Twitch and on YouTube, where you can find my previous streams that have gone off of Twitch, and they're all there in the channel I have there called Cooking with Hedgepigs. If you like my stream and you like my cooking instructions, go ahead and go to YouTube and give me a subscribe. It doesn't cost anything, and you'll be notified every time I put up a new recipe. And if you've missed a stream, you will then be able to be notified that one has come up, and you can catch the VOD. As my regular viewers know, the recipes that I use on stream are in a section of my Discord that is called Stream Recipes. And I have posted the recipe of everything I've cooked on stream so far. And there's also pictures in a section called, Stream Recipe Pictures. So you can see a picture of what it's supposed to look like when we're done. So that is a resource for you guys as well. And I eventually, when we reach 200 viewers, when I reach 200 subscribers, I'm still not using the right word. Wow. I think my sugar's tanking. When I reach 200 followers. So if you like me, you've stumbled in here, and you like my rambling instruction, and maybe you've just watched me a few times. If you like me, give me a follow. I'd really love that. You don't have to, of course. And if you want to support my stream, you can hit that follow button. You can hit a subscribe and get extra cool hedgepig emotes, and you also have an automatic entry into my drawing that I'm going to have when I reach 200 followers. I am going to give away a copy of my cookbook, and it is in final editing right now, and I am pretty sure it's going to be done, and I'm really looking forward to being able to share a lot more of my recipes and the stories Um, Food has always been something to me that is a love language. I like to I like to take care of the people that I love, my friends and family, and I really like if there's nothing that feels better to me than giving my friends and loved ones a meal that is prepared by my hands and tastes really good and is healthy for them. So much nicer than just taking someone out to dinner. Um, it's a way my grandparents were. They grew up in the Great Depression, and food was often very hard to come by. And a way that you showed people as a homemaker, as a mother and wife, that you loved them was to take the uh, take the food that the people like, that's their favorite things to eat, and find a way to make it for them and give them not just a meal, but give them more than enough. And that was something that my grandmothers and my great aunt did with all of their special meals. They made sure they made your favorite in addition to everything else they did and said, I made this for you. I know it's your favorite. And, you know, it was just their way of saying, I thought about you, I spent this time, and you are precious to me. And it just, food has such magic to it. The smell of your grandmother's, you know, pot roast or your mother's lasagna, the smell of that, the taste of it, it brings back the memories of those people who may be gone and of the good times that you had. And my cookbook is an attempt on my part to share those recipes that have that emotional resonance to them in my family, to me, and also to share the stories that are associated with them because I don't have kids. And when I'm gone, all I've got is what I've managed to pass on to nieces and nephews when they have time to listen. And now my friends that I share my recipes with, and all of you, um, as a way of, well, I guess it's a kind of immortality, isn't it? So now I'm going to add, now that this is simmering, I'm going to add the 2 scoops of rice to it. And then we will continue to let it come to a boil. And we will cook it for the 20 minutes so that the rice is done. And you have to stir this. You can see how full this is. There is literally half an inch between the overflow of this pan, of this Dutch oven, which is a 5-quart Dutch oven, and the top of this soup. You need to stir it periodically. Make sure that the rice doesn't get stuck and burned to the bottom. And this is hard anodized. It is non-stick, but that doesn't mean that you can't get things stuck to it anyway. It's just easier to get off. And rice in particular, it will take and burn, and it'll make the entire dish taste bad, very bitter. So I have now stirred that all through. I need to make sure it comes back to a boil. I've now got this set on medium-high, a little bit above that, and that is where we are going to let it sit. I'm going to put the lid on it for now so it will help it heat even more. I have a feature in my Discord that if you have a recipe that you want me to try, if you have a suggestion for the stream, you can put that in there. I do have some requests that have been made. Someone wants me to make my chicken mushroom chowder, and for a long time I didn't because the mushrooms weren't any good, but we're getting into a good mushroom season now, and I will be making my chicken mushroom chowder. That's really delicious. It uses a couple different kinds of mushrooms. There's some chicken in it, but it's really kind of a mushroom chowder with chicken. Served with cheese over it, so it's very rich and tasty, and there's a lot of yumminess involved in that recipe between several different kinds of mushrooms and the seasonings on the chicken, and then you have it finished with cheddar or Colby Jack cheese, and it just makes it kind of a special event. All the flavors combine so well. I've also got a request for my lasagnas, and I have cooked 2 of them so far, but I have another one that's outstanding, and I will be doing that eventually. I have a request for my stuffed lamb, which is a Greek-esque recipe. It is lamb leg that is partially grilled, partially baked. It's cooked to medium rare. And it uses ingredients like feta and provolone cheese, Kalamata olives, and a very nice marinade. And that is just a really special recipe. It's one of the ones I get asked for a lot. If I'm going to be coming, can you make that? So I will be making that. And I have also had somebody ask me to demonstrate a prime rib, how to make a good prime rib. So I will be doing that at some point. While I'm waiting for this to come to temperature and be finished, I will say that we have a Cooking with Hedgepigs upgrade goal, where if you would like to help support my stream with a donation, you can donate or tip, and that money will go for my stream to get a second camera, get better equipment, things like that, and it will help make the stream better. So that would be greatly appreciated. Again, not expected. We have, as the summer months come up, we are going to be moving, so I may be down for a week or so, a couple weeks down then. But when we come back in our new location, I'm hoping to have a better kitchen, and I can even expand my stream out into showing how to can things, how to make homemade pickles and canned fruits, and make jams and fruit spreads like apple butter. I make a really nice brandy peach butter. When peaches are in season, that's a really good one, and it's very easy to can. It's a little finicky, but it's not difficult. So that is something to be looking forward to as well. I have a viewer in Germany who told me a very sad tale, because she is a dill pickle fan just like I am, and she couldn't get dill pickles in Germany that taste like the dills she thinks of as dill pickles. And I suggested, kind of flippantly, well, why don't you make your own? You can make some refrigerator pickles. It's not hard. She said, well, I don't even have a recipe for that. So I dug out the recipe I have for dill pickles, and it really has 2 ways of making it. You can either make it as a refrigerator pickle, which doesn't require an actual canner, and it could also be, when you're done processing it, it could be made into a canned pickle, or pickle which you can put on your shelf, lasts for about a year. And the refrigerator pickle is just put into the jars as if you were going to do it for canning. And then instead, you put it in the refrigerator and you let it sit for about a week to 2 weeks. And you can then eat those pickles, and they will last 3 or 4 months in your refrigerator if you let them. She tried the recipe I had, and she said it is wonderful. It has made it so she has her dill pickles, and she's happy, and she has 3 different variations from me. So she could have a straight dill pickle, she could have a spicy dill pickle, a garlic dill pickle, or a spicy garlic dill pickle, and all with just a couple shifts of seasoning. Got that cooking, and it is probably got another 15 to 20 minutes because it has just reached the big simmer stage. You can see the little cloudy areas in here. That is where the bubbles are actually coming up from the simmering, and that's a quality of tomato sauce that you're using in this. And I am going to stir it because it is solidifying on the bottom, and we need to make sure those rice grains do not stick. So all you need to do is just carefully run a stiff implement, like a wooden spoon like this that has a flat edge, or a spoonchula or a spatula that's rigid around the whole bottom, and make sure that you've got nothing sticking to it, and you let it go for some more minutes. And as you can see, this is a very thick, this is a lot like chili in texture. So then you stir it, put the lid back up on it for a while. If I have any viewers that aren't shy, please, if you're watching and just, lurking there, give us a hello. That way then you will both register as a viewer for Twitch, and you can ask me a question about things if you want to, or you are not shy, honey. You are definitely not shy. That is one thing you are not. I can answer questions about herbs and different recipes that I might have. You could put in a request or make a suggestion that maybe we should do this or that with our stream to make it better. Suggest a topic for us to explore. What about herbs? Can I answer questions on herbs rather than herbs? Yes, I can actually. I can put the British H in things. It sounds really funny to me, but I will, just for you, honey, try to say herbs. My husband is British, for those of you that don't know. So we have a few little things, like if he sings the alphabet song, H shows up strangely, and so does Z. We call it Z. Those of British descent call it Z, which is kind of jarring. W, X, Y, and Z. Sounds funny to me. That is, my throat is starting to get a little rough. It is one of those things why I haven't been streaming, because usually after about 20 minutes of talking, I am both coughing and my voice goes froggy. But that is not going to happen this time. I am not coughing because I am getting better. But my voice is getting a little froggy. I can hear it and I can feel it. There we go again. 10 or so minutes away from this being ready. Now this doesn't have to be a wild boil to get this cooked. it's a simmer where you have little bubbles coming up over the pot. Most people, when they think of boil, they think of what's called a rolling boil, where the whole surface is like a hot tub, basically. You've got frantic amounts of energy being released through these bubbles, and you've got foam, you've got bubbles, you've got usually splattering, and that's not what's needed. You just need to have this at a simmer so it is near a boiling point, and it just has to be there for 20 minutes while the rice is softened, and then allows it to cook and absorb the liquids in the soup to hydrate itself and become the fluffy rice most people are accustomed to. And excuse me for the slight hiccup there. This is a soup that is finished with Parmesan cheese, just like the stuffed bell pepper soup. And have we displayed the Discord for anybody, honey, or the YouTube link? They can be found on my stream channel, but we can also post them out there. There we go. You join my Discord for all of my recipes and pictures of those recipes. And you can join my YouTube and subscribe to that if you'd like, or just catch can. There are my videos that I have been streaming for the last 5 months. Yeah, that really was. I apologize. We have a couple neighbors that one of them's on a motorcycle and one of them's in like a Camaro. And although this is a 25-mile-an-hour zone and right across from a children's playground, they zoom through here at high throttle and, 40, 50 or more miles an hour several times a year. They miss the T-turn that we have here and they go right through the fence. So I'm just happy I'm not in that house. Having the constant guests in their vehicles is probably something that both they and their insurance agent really don't like. So, oops, fumble fingers there. Give it another stir. Now the rice is absorbing the liquid in here. The starch is helping to thicken it. And the rice is cooking along with all of the vegetables that are in here. And you can see some of the whiter tomato onions that haven't gone completely soft yet. And that's fine. Just a little extra texture in it. Yeah. Got some rice on here. I can already tell visually that the rice is not done because the rice will change color as well. It goes from being a hard white to a softened, semi-translucent. Hey, Fluffy Bully. How are you doing? Good evening. I don't know where you are in the country, but I am making a vegetarian stuffed bell pepper soup. It is cooking away here now, and it is a variation on my regular stuffed bell pepper soup, which uses beef. Well, your canned soup doesn't look like that because it is mass marketed and over processed, and it is just, it's homemade is better. It just is. If you're enjoying my stream, you can hit a follow. You can also join my Discord, and you can get all of my recipes that I've streamed along with looking at pictures of how they came out. And yeah, that is cooking really hard now. I've probably got another 5 minutes before this is done. then I will be dishing it up and putting Parmesan cheese on it. If you are vegan, up till this point, this is a vegan recipe as well because it has no animal products in it at all. But uh, if you are vegan and you want to put the cheese on it, I know you can get vegan cheeses. So that will keep it vegan. But when I put the cheese on top of this, it will um, it will make it so it's still vegetarian as long as you're one of the vegetarians that eat dairy, and most people who classify themselves as a vegetarian do. They will eat at least dairy products and eggs, which would be an ovo-lacto vegetarian. And there are some that will also eat fish, and I actually also eat fish. That is also classified as it. Yeah, and if Campbell's soups ever came out looking like this, I mean, their chunky soups used to when they first came out with them, but those have gotten too commercialized, and even their ones that are supposed to be really thick, they just really aren't. So it really isn't that difficult to do this. I've done this talking and having some interruptions on our stream this time for the first time, and noise problems as well, unfortunately. But if I wasn't talking during this and giving a lot of instruction with it and a lot of stories, this takes about an hour, start to finish. And you end up with this wonderful pot of soup that is, like I said, it's thick enough to be, yeah, they are very watery if they're a clear broth. Even their cream-based soups, they don't have enough stuff in them. They don't have enough of the meat. They don't have enough of the vegetables. It's not a really thick soup, which is what chunky is supposed to be. It's supposed to be more like a canned stew or their chowders, but it's cheaper to have more of the liquid and less of the, uh, the meat of the matter, the vegetables and uh, the vegetables and the meat that you put in it. It's much more valuable to them to have the quantity be filled with liquid. So most of the soups that I make, except for my egg drop soup, um, most of my soups are more like stews or chowders because these are a meal for us, not something we eat with a sandwich or something. We eat these as a meal. So they have this soup, like I said, has a chili-like consistency, especially after it's been refrigerated. The uh, rice is going to absorb a lot of the broth, and the rice starch will help thicken the broth that's already on there, so it's more like a gravy like you have in chili. And yeah, chicken broth is good to make. Making your own beef broth is good to make. I do that because I'm allergic to garlic. So a lot of things that are made, like canned soups, canned broths, there's garlic in it, so I can't have it. It's a severe garlic allergy. Will stop my breathing, so it's like a peanut allergy almost. Um, I kind of believe when you make a soup, it should be a meal. Here, I'm not going to make. I can make cream of tomato soup, and that's great. That's probably the most thin um, soup that I make because it's meant to just be a tomato sauce with cream in it and herbs, and that goes really well with both tuna sandwiches and with grilled cheese. That's a classic to go with that. But the rest of mine are a lot like this. They have a lot of ingredients in it. It's more, when I make chicken noodle soup, my cousin kids me and says, "You made noodle soup with chicken." Because when I start out, unless I measure the noodles, they always look so small. And it looks like that's not going to be enough to be like a chicken noodle soup. And so I end up adding way too many noodles, and it ends up being primarily a noodle dish. I need to try this again. I think this is actually done. The rice has the correct appearance. So I'm going to grab some rice off the top of this and see if they are done. Yes, they are, and they are very hot. So we have got this cooked now, and I am going to make sure nothing is sticking to the bottom because this is thickening up rapidly. I think you can see how thick this is. And I will get out my bowl I have for this and a ladle. This is a nice, pretty stoneware bowl with handles on the side. It will go into the oven. Yeah, isn't it? This is absolutely gorgeous food. This is a lot of value for what you're getting here. This is the, like I said, this is the vegetarian version, but there's also a meat version of this that's also on my Discord, and it is just a lovely filling soup. Okay, so we've got that. Now I will take my Parmesan cheese and I will put it on here thickly because I like the cheese. It makes it really good. And to finish off the appearance, slight sprinkling of the parsley on top because it's pretty. A picture of this will show up on my Discord shortly. But here is the appearance of the pretty thing. Do a white background. My husband is getting out our light box as we speak. It is absolutely gorgeous. And the flavor is better actually the second day, but it's not bad now. It has a bit of an Italian flair to it because of the taste of the oregano and basil in it. Like I said, this is the vegetarian version. Feel free to add beef to it. Or you can do this with ground turkey or ground chicken. Those are both options as well. You want to smell? I would love to have smell-o-vision for this. I just describing some of my recipes, Fluffy Bowl. Um, it is. Oh, I need a spoon. Good. I'm going to taste this for you and make you drool. I am going to use a proper soup spoon and take up bits of everything so I have it all represented here. I've got some onion and some peppers. I've got the smart ground in it, and I have got tomatoes and the cheese. And this is going to burn my mouth absolutely off because it's hot.
far too often I have to say pot before I give her food.
Oh, that is so good. What comes across first is the tomatoes, the oregano, the basil that's in it. You can taste the peppers, taste the sweet red peppers. Yeah, a nice crusty bread would go good with this, like one of those um, bread loaves they have in the grocery store that are only $1. Put something like that on there. This would be great for dipping in it. Um, this is, I think we are going to raid. Well, let's go Long Dark Forever. He is a TLD streamer and a professional chef. This is up now on my Discord for the recipe. We've got my video. You can go back and see it in my VOD on my page. Please go and give this a try. Substitute the meat in if that's what you like. This is a lovely soup. It keeps well. It freezes well. Makes an absolutely wonderful meal. Thank you all for coming. I appreciate everybody who has and everyone who will watch this video later. And we'll see you next time on Saturday. Thank you again.